Now, as the Iran war continues, more families are being displaced due to the ongoing hostilities in the region and seeking refuge elsewhere. But how is this actually impacting the flow of migration across Europe and in the UK? I'm joined now by the Deputy Director General at the International Organization for Migration, Ugochi Daniels. Very good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Do hostilities in Iran immediately lead to increase in migration, or is there a lag effect? What are you seeing at the moment?
So what we're seeing is that there has been displacement within Iran, people moving, evacuating, basically staying with family members, moving out of the capital to Tehran. But we haven't seen any mass displacement outside of Iran right now. What we do expect to happen, however, is that if hostilities continue, instability continues, people will seek safer options. But for now, no displacement.
And what's the kind of setup as we come into this war, as you sort of look at the start of the year in isolation? How bad are the numbers in terms of global migration?
So what we're seeing as a consequence of this situation is the knock-on effects on fuel prices, on food prices, and then, of course, this then impacts instability more broadly outside the region, Eastern Horn of Africa, what we're seeing with the impact in Asia, for example. So it, in a way, piles on further instability in places that were unstable. So we're tracking this. We're very concerned about the impact on people, what the hostilities mean for people in their daily lives, and what are the coping mechanisms that they take to deal with this. There was an earlier story of people in Afghanistan selling their children, pulling kids out of school. So that's what we are really worried about. How are people coping with the instability this has had within the region and more broadly?
And which countries are you most focused on that are being affected most of all by this war?
So for starters, Afghanistan. We've seen over 300,000 people moving back out of Iran into Afghanistan. And of course, the situation in Afghanistan was precarious before hostilities in Iran. The same with Lebanon. Lebanon now has 1 million people who have been displaced additionally as a consequence of this. And then Syria, where over 400,000 people have moved into Syria. These are big numbers going into countries that are not stable and are dealing with their own issues around displacement. So we're very concerned about that, as well as the knock-on effects more broadly.
Do you think that we'll see a spike then in terms of migration into closer to home to Europe as well as a result, or not?
It depends on how long hostilities continue. I mean, we continue to call for cessation of hostilities, protection of civilians, protections of civilian infrastructure, so that people can stay where they are and they're not forced to leave. So, as I said, right now we're not seeing that. But of course, if instability continues much longer and there aren't efforts put into stabilizing, normalizing, allowing people to go back to their daily lives and livelihoods, then of course people will look for other options, including moving out of the region.
Two quick final questions. One, the impact of the war on some of the poorer nations, particularly in Asia, that were receiving previously a lot of oil and other materials from the Strait of Hormuz. Are there going to be major knock-on effects there?
Well, absolutely, because food prices will go up. Fuel prices have gone up. And from our perspective, I mean, we are the UN Migration Agency. What's the impact on migrants? The region is a region that has a large number of migrants. And if they're not sending remittances and to economies that really depend on remittances. So there multiple ripple effects of the hostilities in the region.
And just finally, we cover the situation in Sudan as much as we can on Sky News. What's the latest there? And again, is the rising cost of energy a kind of extra problem?
So Sudan is the largest displacement crisis in the world. And what we have seen as a consequence of the situation in Iran and the region, and for our operations in Sudan, it's increase in fuel and food, which we had spoken about, but it also has increased market prices, and the supplies that we need to get in for people who very much need it has also gone up. And this is in a context where the funding to support humanitarian aid has gone down.
Gosh, again, highlighting the scale of the issue there. Ugochi Daniels, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.